Outer Wilds is a game about the inevitable end of the universe. Not that you would know that by your first impression of the game, which for me was trying to get the perfect roast on a marshmallow and falling to my death after a geyser had blasted me into the sky. After seeing the credits roll about 5 minutes into my first playthrough, I wake up again. And this time, my eyes are drawn to the orbital probe cannon that seems to be firing something into space. I'll have to look into that when I've gotten the launch codes. Entering the village, this time making sure to stay far away from those treacherous geysers, I start talking to my fellow Hearthians, who tell me about the Outer Wilds ventures and of our species' legacy of spacefaring. And as the sun rises on Timber Hearth, I hear the first piece of music in the game. It's warm, welcoming, and it fills me with a sense that my eventual journey into space actually matters to these people. I eventually come across Nice, who tells me about the other travelers already out among the stars, and about the instruments that they've brought along with them. She tells me that if I ever feel like company, I can always pull out my signal scope and listen to them play. Leaving orbit, I see the moon orbiting Timber Hearth, the Addle Rock, and in one of its craters sits Esker, whistling to himself. After talking to him, it becomes quite apparent that he's somewhat lonely. Isolated as he is on the lunar outpost, he takes comfort in listening to the other travelers playing their instruments, and he encourages me to go to the Addle Rock's North Pole so that I can listen to them myself. So, I make my way over there and pull out my signal scope. I can hear Feldspar and their harmonica in the distance of Dark Bramble. Rybeck and their ukulele over at Brittle Hollow. Gabbro's flute at Giant's Deep. And finally, Shirt's drums over on the Hourglass Twins. I stand there for a while, just listening and wondering what they've seen and what they've learned on their respective planets. I eventually decide to make my way over to the Hourglass Twins, as they are the closest to me. But it would seem my autopilot had other plans. Waking up after my encounter with the sun, I once again get reminded of the orbital probe cannon. And this time I decide to rush to my spaceship and try to follow whatever it was that was shot out. Reaching the probe, I find absolutely nothing. I mean, at this point I don't even know what I'm looking at. But in my attempt to find anything at all, I pull out my signal scope to see if there's something coming out of the probe. But to no avail. But when I turn around to return to my spaceship, I hear something that made the hair on my arms stand up. It was the travelers, playing their instruments that, to me, at this point hundreds of miles away, sounded like it was in unison. Having only heard one of the travelers at a time up until this point, it was only now, hundreds of miles away from them, that I realized they had been playing an ensemble tune all along, comforting each other throughout space and connecting them with their music. I could fully understand now why Esker took so much joy in listening to his fellow travelers. And I had absolutely fallen in love with the music of Outer Wilds. Traversing the galaxy, I learn of the Nomai, the alien race that inhabited this galaxy before us, as well as being the Harthians' inspiration to search for the eye of the universe. The remains of their civilization is scattered throughout the galaxy, and my following loops were spent exploring and learning about their history. And it's in these ruins that I come across my first instances of Nomai music. It's very distinct from the Harthian music I've gotten familiar with, utilizing different instruments, and it has this ancient and somewhat tragic undertone to it, reflecting their eventual fate. Nomai ruins place in the abandoned Nomai sites, such as the caves on Timber Hearth and the construction site on Giant's Deep. The Nomai place in the hanging and sunless city that became the home for the Nomai on board Escape Pod 1 and 2 respectively. And the search, that place at the Southern Observatory at Brittle Hollow, as well as the Orbital Probe Cannon's control module, both being sites that were important to the Nomai's search for the eye of the universe. Learning more about the Nomai's quest for the eye, the Sun Station keeps coming up in their writing. Supposedly, they attempted to make the sun go supernova in order to power their technology. Many Nomai argued that exploding the sun would go against their principles as a species, while others argued that pushing their research to its ethical limits in the name of progress perfectly aligned with their principles. So, seeing how the sun has kept on exploding at the end of my loops, I decide to travel to the Sun Station, hoping it will be the key to saving the galaxy and my fellow Harthians. The game has been building towards this for a long time, and arriving at the Sun Station, you really get the feeling that this is going to be a turning point in the game, as the music swells with a sense of grandness and finality. But it did not turn out to be the revelation I had expected it to be. Inside the Sun Station, there is nothing to learn except that they had failed. They fired at the sun, but to no avail. It did nothing. Hoping to find the answer to stop the sun from exploding, all I was left with was the horrific truth that time had run out. For me, my species, my sun, and my galaxy. Looking at the sun through the panels, I feel a sense of melancholy. My mission on the sun station had failed, much in the same way that the Nomai failed to power the Ash Twin project hundreds of thousands of years ago. I would have to start from scratch, just as the Nomai had to. For me, it meant to go on knowing that there was nothing I could do to stop the galaxy from exploding. For the Nomai, they had reached the end of their road, with the interloper and its ghost matter wiping their species from the face of the galaxy, and with that, their search would come to a tragic end. Fittingly enough, the sun station is actually the search put in reverse that, in a brilliant use of music narrative integration, reflects how the sun station, in a way, was where the Nomai's search for the eye came to die. All other times the Nomai were unsuccessful at finding the eye, they bounced back with a new, more elaborate solution. But with the sun station, they hit a complete dead end. The sun station also meant the death of the standards that the Nomai held themselves to and everything they believed as a species. Idea even said as much in a writing in the Sunless City. And although some Nomai saw it differently, the sun station marked the point where the Nomai's desperation to reach the eye took a step too far, endangering the well-being of the entire galaxy. So, what's next for me? What's the point of doing anything, now knowing that the galaxy's fate is sealed and there is nothing I can do about it? Well, I can do what the game has been teaching me up until this point. I can accept it and I can move on. I can enjoy the time I have left. I can roast a few more marshmallows. I can hang out with the travelers and listen to them play. And I can pick up the baton after the Nomai and reach the eye of the universe. I won't be able to save this universe. The stars will go supernova. One by one, all my friends will die along with all life in this universe. But I might still be able to aid in the creation of a new one. So that's what I'll do. Taking out the core from the Ash Twin project, Final Voyage starts to play. It has the core elements of end times that always plays when the sun is about to go supernova, sending us back 22 minutes and restarting our time loop. But there's something else present in the music as well. This time, I have no do-overs. This is it. The universe is ending and the time loop is broken. I only have this one final chance to finish what the Nomai started, and I better make it count. At the end of it all, at the ancient glade, I find Esker, once again telling me to pull out my signal scope and listen after the other traveler's music. It's a beautiful callback to the start of the game and evokes a sense of closure that absolutely manages to get me emotional. Having entered the eye of the universe, it's music that still manages to connect me to my fellow travelers. And it's through this familiar melody that I can bring my memories of them with me gently into that good night. The universe was, and we were. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope you liked it. I'm quite happy with how it turned out. If you did, feel free to tell me in the comments, like the video, or maybe even subscribe. Huge shout out to Andrew Farlow for composing the music to this incredible game, as well as the game's DLC that I may or may not be covering in the near future. Have a look out for that, and have a beautiful rest of your day.